Hello, guys, and welcome to the Stardom Cast, your weekly audio source of all things World Wonder Ring Stardom. I'm your host, Rob Goodwin. I'm joined, as ever, by my beautiful co-host, Mr. Matt Turner, and we're here today with a little bit of a different episode. Simply because, as fans of Momo Watanabe may know, she is due to take on Mercedes Mone for the AEW TBS Championship at AEW Revolution on March 9th. And we thought that this would be a great opportunity, Matt, to introduce fans who maybe aren't as familiar with the Black Peach to her as we possibly can.
Yeah, we haven't done one of these in a long time. We kind of figured, hey, a lot of people have been asking us questions about Momo Watanabe. We have a lot of friends and fans of this podcast, or just AEW in general, that are asking us, who is Momo Watanabe? What's her character? What's certain things that she does, and why is this match with Mercedes so important? We figured, rather than just typing it out, let's do a podcast about it. So that's what we're doing. We're going to do a little bit of a Momo Watanabe primer. We'll have this one released a few days before her big matchup coming up with one Mercedes Mone at AEW Revolution. I just got to look at a quick peek at the ticket sales. Over 9,000 tickets have been sold for this event. So a lot of people there over in Los Angeles, the city of angels, will be watching Momo Watanabe and Mercedes Mone tear it up. But I'm excited to talk about this one, my man. I remember me and you, I think it might have been our second or third Patreon episode that we did, was the Momo Watanabe Wonder of Stardom Championship run. And then we eventually released that about a year or so later onto the free feed. So a lot of great stuff with Momo Watanabe. So I'm excited to dive into one Momo Watanabe, the Black Peach, and one of the greatest Wonder of Stardom champions of all time.
9,000 people. It's a far cry from the less than 2,000 people they drew for Mercedes and Momo Watanabe last time in Washington, D.C. Of course, different markets. Obviously, LA quite a strong wrestling market in comparison to Washington, D.C. But even so, that's still a huge amount for Momo Watanabe to be exposed to. And I think they are going to be very, very excited with what they get. Now, first things first, it's dependent on how much time Mercedes and Momo get. We know that there are a lot of big matches on Revolution. I mean, we just looking at the show, the card is absolutely stacked, and you can see at least 3 or 4 of those matches going 25-30 minutes. So whether Mercedes and Momo get an extended period of time, I don't know. What I do know, and what I do know from watching Momo Watanabe for many years now, is that she will be very, very good in the time allotted. So, whether it's a short amount of time, 7, 8, 9 minutes, or whether it's 13, 14, 15 minutes, Momo Watanabe is equally impactful in both those time spans. And we're going to sort of highlight, her moveset for people who aren't familiar, talk about her history, talk about as well some of the matches that fans of Momo Watanabe or new fans coming out of the Mercedes Mone match might want to go and check out to really see the showcase that is Momo Watanabe.
Yeah, the one interesting thing about this match coming up is Mercedes Mone, when she wrestles in for New Japan Strong, she wrestles pretty much as a babyface and gets cheered as a babyface. In AEW, she is doing a lot of heel tactics and presenting herself as a heel because that's her character, especially in these backstage segments. And Momo Watanabe, even though she has been a heel for the better part of 3.5 years, in the United States, she's cheered quite a bit. Again, we were there in the ECW arena when she came out to challenge Maika for the World of Stardom Championship, basically setting up the match for All-Star Grand Queendom. And Momo got cheered. And again, I was there at Forbidden Door in the pre-show where Momo teamed with Chris Statlander take on Tam and Willow Nightingale. And Momo Watanabe was cheered. So I have a feeling that Momo Watanabe is going to be cheered quite a bit, especially with the lead up and the backstage stuff that they've been doing with Mercedes Mone. But I'm really looking forward to it. And this is just a really great example where people can see the best wrestling in the world, that is Stardom. Because again, Stardom is a company that draws, 1,000, 2,000 people, where again, a lot of people, over 10,000 people, are going to be watching, 9,000 people are going to be watching this great match with Momo Watanabe versus Mercedes Mone.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's delve straight into this then. Momo Watanabe is one of the most tenured wrestlers in Stardom, debuted in 2014 against Takumi Aroha. She has now wrestled to date, bearing in mind this is the 3rd of March, 781 matches in Stardom. She's second in terms of overall matches, just behind Mayu Iwatani, who has wrestled 960 something. So a considerable chunk of matches for Momo Watanabe. What's even more impressive, actually, is of the top 12 wrestlers in Stardom in terms of matches wrestled, she has the highest win percentage, higher than Mayu, higher than Tam, higher than Hazuki, higher than Starlight Kid. All of these people, Momo Watanabe has a higher win percentage. Now, you can take that as you will. However, that shows that she can get stuff done. Now, in terms of her history, there's a couple of bullet points in terms of Momo's history. And again, this is massively condensed. If you want to listen to more about her, if you want to read up on Momo Watanabe, there is a lot of literature out there about her. But in terms of the key points you need to know, initially, when she debuted or just after she debuted, she joined a team with Jungle Kiona called JK Green with about 400 E's in it. Really good babyface underdog tag team. Eventually, they broke up. Momo Watanabe sustained a knee injury, came back and joined Io Shirai, now WWE's Io Sky, in the creation of Queen's Quest. Now, Queen's Quest was the real making of Momo Watanabe. And Matt, stop me if I'm getting any of this wrong or there's something you want to interject. But again, Queen's Quest was the thing that really made Momo Watanabe, really cemented her as a future flag bearer for the company. And that's something that's going to come up a little bit as we move through the history of Momo Watanabe. But she was seen as the future, and Io Sky eventually would leave Stardom in 2018 to go to the WWE. When she left, she earmarked Momo Watanabe and Mayu as the two faces of Stardom. Now, Matt, I think it's fair to say that quite a few people, before we get into, the more recent history and the Wonder of Stardom Championship reign and stuff like that, I think it's fair to say that even though Momo was earmarked as the next ace of Stardom, and even though she beat Mayu Iwatani in what was effectively an ace versus icon match in, I believe it was October 2018 at True Fight, fantastic match, by the way, I think it's fair to say she never really has fulfilled the potential that people saw in her. Now, that's not solely her fault. In fact, I would argue it is primarily not her fault. But she hasn't quite reached the summit, has she?
Yet. Not yet, my friend. Again, she's only, I believe, 25 years old, or just about 25 years old. So still very young into her wrestling career. She just debuted at a very young age. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You look at 2017, Kyrie leaves, 2018, Io leaves. They're two biggest stars. And it's like, you're never going to replace Kyrie. You're never going to replace Io. However, Mayu and Momo Watanabe did a great job. Great job filling in that void. And the two of them really grew and basically almost grew together because their best matches, even to this day, are against each other. And again, we'll get into all the great matches, the Jungle Kiona matches, the Syuri match from the 2021 5-star Grand Prix, the Hazuki matches that she's had. But like, they basically were like, okay, no Kyrie, no Io. Io basically put the stamp that's going to be you two to carry this company into the future. Let's do it. Let's do it together in matches against each other. And some of their matches in the 5-star Grand Prix and just that match at last year's historic crossover, just absolute must see pro wrestling. But a lot of pressure was put on the shoulders of Momo Watanabe at a very young age, basically defeating Io Shirai to win the Wonder of Stardom Championship and then become the leader of Queen's Quest, all at the age of 18. And a lot of people, especially at that age, can crack under that pressure. And she thrived. She thrived because she, to this day, is one of, if not the best, Wonder of Stardom champion.
I mean, debuting at 14, 15 is already a lot of stress, and that's nothing new to Stardom. We've seen countless wrestlers debut at that sort of age. You know, Azumi is another one. We've seen Rina Hina and Hanan, Ruaka have all debuted at that sort of age, but it is a lot of pressure. It is something that I want to note, though, the departure of Kairi and Io. So, for those who are WWE fans, I know that there is a lot of tribalism between WWE and AEW, but in terms of the three faces of Stardom, or the three daughters of Stardom, it was very much Kairi Hojo, Io Shirai, and Mayu Iwatani. Kairi left for the WWE in 2017. In the middle of 2017, Io would follow a year later. Now, before Io left, she was the Wonder of Stardom champion, the second singles belt in Stardom. She was that champion. She would ultimately drop that belt to Momo Watanabe. And this was the huge moment in Momo Watanabe's career. She'd already lost to Io Shirai for that belt earlier in the year. She then won the Cinderella tournament, where she would gain another opportunity to beat Io Shirai. She would eventually dethrone Io in May of that year, become the Wonder of Stardom champion, and begin what was at the time a completely unprecedented reign with that belt, one that was unbroken for the longest time. And we're going to talk a lot about that reign in a moment. But it could have potentially been a dark time for Stardom, losing your two huge faces in Kairi and Io in such quick succession. And no disrespect at all meant to Kairi Hojo, but Io especially. So to be earmarked as the future when Io leaves, again, we talked about the pressure. Io also sort of bequeathed Queen's Quest onto Momo Watanabe. So not only now is Momo Watanabe the face of the company, she's also the leader of Queen's Quest, sort of in Io Shirai's stead. In terms of the Wonder of Stardom Championship, she'd hold it for 358 days, 12 title defenses in an incredible reign, Matt Turner.
Yeah, I mean, just something that is just absolutely incredible. And some of those matches are must see matches. Again, we know there's newer fans to Stardom because of the AW relationship, and we know there's newer listeners of the Stardom cast. And one, hello, welcome, we thank you. But to go out of your way to sort out the two matches with Io Shirai, one from February, I think it was Queen's Quest, and then one I believe it was either April or June where she wins the championship. But then, I mean, the two matches she has with Jungle Kiona, the one in Jungle Kiona's hometown of Nagoya, and the one on the final Io Shirai match with Jungle Kiona in a jam-packed Korakuen Hall. Great matches with current AW wrestlers. Hater. Really, really excellent stuff there from Momo Watanabe in that Wonder of Stardom Championship run. So again, if you have never seen Momo Watanabe before and you're just interested on what is this Mercedes Mone, a big star in pro wrestling, what's she getting herself into in this match with Momo Watanabe, go out of your way to seek out those matches. Again, the Jamie Hayter match, the Deonna Purrazzo match, the Io Shirai matches, the Jungle Kiona matches. I mean, there's so much great stuff there, especially when she was 18, 19 years old, pretty much alongside with Mayu carrying the company as the Wonder of Stardom Championship.
At 18 years old as well, sort of the face of a company at 18 years old, which is quite the challenge. Again, you mentioned, the match against Jamie Hayter, which is an underrated classic. It's a really good match. Also a match with Deonna Purrazzo as well. If we're talking about AEW wrestlers, that's also a match worth noting. I'd say arguably Deonna Purrazzo's best match in Stardom. It certainly is Deonna Purrazzo's best match in Stardom during that tour. Speaking of that run, I know I said 12 title defenses. I don't know why I said that. It was 13. And I knew it was 13. Don't know why I didn't say he was 13. But she would ultimately lose the championship to Arisa Hoshiki, who won the next year. Cinderella beat Momo for the belt. Now, this is notable for one big reason. She lost that belt in 2019, as I've just noted. In fact, to be more specific, she lost it on the 16th of May, 2019. The reason I bring this up is because that was the last time. Well, in fact, no, even before then, the 5th of April, 2019 was the last time Momo Watanabe won a singles championship match. So we are closing in on almost 6 years since Momo Watanabe has won a singles championship match. Now, that's not to say that she hasn't been successful since. In the aftermath of losing the Wonder of Stardom championship, she has been a multi-time Goddesses of Stardom champion, the Goddess of Stardom titles being the tag titles in Stardom, with Utami Hayashishita, with Starlight Kid, with Tekla most recently. She has won the Artist of Stardom belt as well. She's reached the final of the 5-Star Grand Prix, which is Stardom's version of the G1 Climax. She's been successful to a point. Now, post 2019, Momo Watanabe is a little bit of a different kettle of fish. Whereas she was seen in 2018 as, alongside Mayu, the face of the company, it's fair to say that other people came to the fore ahead of Momo. Now, whether that was Julia, whether that was Hana Kimura, whether that was Mayu, whether that was a whole host of other wrestlers, Arisa, for example, Utami in her own faction. In her own faction as well. Momo eventually would find herself being shunted further and further down the card. Now, for me personally, this became really apparent sort of end of 2019, start of 2020. Now, when Stardom's relationship developed with New Japan, when Stardom were bought out by Bushiroad, who are the same company that own New Japan, there was the opportunity for Stardom wrestlers to appear on the Tokyo Dome cards, the Wrestle Kingdom cards. And this was huge. Initially, the Stardom matches weren't aired. They were dark matches, but even so, to wrestle in front of that many people, the first one being in 2020, I believe, was tremendous, was incredible, was a real privilege for these Stardom wrestlers. However, one name was missing from those cards. So from 2020 all the way through to, present day Stardom, present day New Japan, one name was missing from those 4th of January Tokyo Dome cards, and that was Momo Watanabe. Now, there were rumors flying around for a long, long time that this was to do with her look, which is something that has been the bane of quite a few different wrestlers in Japan and has been noted as being an important part of succeeding in Japan. And Momo, again, sort of stagnated, I think it's fair to say. She was someone who, given the tap on the shoulder, she would deliver tremendous matches. You look at her World of Stardom Championship match against Mayu Iwatani at the 9th anniversary show in Korakuen. Phenomenal match. Absolutely phenomenal match. However, she seemed to be treading water. And those last few years of Momo Watanabe in Queen's Quest, from probably the end of 2019 all the way through to the end of 2021, Matt, were a time when Momo Watanabe didn't have a direction. Pardon me, really. And this is still one where she reached the final of the 5-Star Grand Prix in 2021, losing in, again, a phenomenal match against Syuri. But again, she seemed to be the perennial bridesmaid. Never the bride, always the bridesmaid. and was never really given the opportunity again to really showcase what she could do on a long-term scale.
She seemed like that she's the person to tap on the shoulder, be like, get somebody over, have somebody have a great match. You know,
Mm.
we obviously knew into 2020 the big project was Utami Hayashishita defeating, obviously winning the Cinderella tournament, defeating Mayu to win the red belt, and then her first title defense is against the leader of her own faction, Momo Watanabe. And we just always see it seems as like, okay, then we need to have a really good match. It's going to sell a lot of tickets and it's going to get a lot of buzz. We'll put Momo in the match. We'll put Momo in the match, and it's just that's and it's a good spot to have for a certain amount of time. But eventually it's time to pull the trigger and to move that person up if they so deserve it. And I think Momo's at that spot right now. You know, it's be interesting to see what happens with this match with Mercedes. It's be interesting to see what happens with Momo Watanabe going into the future here in 2025, because me and you both say on air and off air that Momo Watanabe is just one angle away becoming one of, if not the biggest baby faces in all of Stardom. Because even though she's technically a heel, a lot of people love her just because of how great of a wrestler she is and how well she connects with the audience and how much she puts into her performance and her character. I mean, she really is second to none. But yeah, again, look at those matches with Mayu for the red belt, with Utami for the red belt. Everyone always talks about the match with Syuri from the 2021 5-star Grand Prix, and rightfully so. But her and Syuri had a great match the next year back in the summer of 2022 for Syuri's World of Stardom Championship. Match with Maika, main evented last year of All-Star Grand Queendom. It's a little bit of a different match because it was 2 out of 3 falls, with each fall having a different stipulation, and they hit it out of the park. All the matches with Mayu at the 5-star Grand Prix, the Hazuki matches. Her feud with Hazuki is one that is really underrated between their Wonder of Stardom Championship match back in 2018. Still one of my favorite Wonder of Stardom Championship matches of all time in the company's history. Her match with Hazuki from the 2022 final night of the 5-star Grand Prix. Her and Starlight Kid as Black Desire, the 2-match series they had with FWC, Hazuki and Kagama back in the spring of 2022. So it's one thing to be a great singles wrestler. It's another thing to be a great tag wrestler and partner. You mentioned before, great tag team with Utami Hayashishita, great tag team with Starlight Kid, great tag team with Tekla. I think her best tag partner is the partner that she never won the Goddess belts with, but won the 2020 Goddess of Stardom tournament with the Zumi. With the Zumi, I think that's her best tag partner. So again, it's another thing to be a great tag wrestler. But when you're a great tag wrestler with Utami, with Starlight Kid, with Tekla, with Azumi, even the couple times she teamed with Saya Kamatani, they had really good chemistry. So again, it just goes to show you how great of a versatile wrestler Momo is, because she can be a great singles wrestler, a great tag wrestler, a great 6 and 8 person wrestler with multiple partners, because she is just that talented and she can work the different styles. She works a hard-hitting style, but she's a great technical wrestler, a great submission wrestler. And even last year at Cork Hall, she had that wild match at Sendai Girls with Dash Chisako, that hardcore match.
Forgot
So
about that. Yeah, it's a good match.
I mean, she's just a phenomenal wrestler at every aspect. But anytime she's tapped on the shoulder to hit a home run, she's absolutely hitting a home run. And we were so happy that she got that big win at the Tokyo Dome earlier this year at the basically winning the Wrestle Dynasty Cup and calling her shot for the championship match, which again she's getting this weekend in Los Angeles, California. So yeah, again, Momo Watanabe is a wrestler that is very much underrated and underappreciated, but at the same time, only 25 years old. And again, great baby face, a great heel. She can work it either way. But again, I think she's one angle away of becoming one of the biggest baby faces in Stardom. And considering the fact that Stardom is the hottest they've ever been, that I think that she's just going to grow and grow and grow. Because the fans that are Momo Watanabe, Rob, you know this because we're fans of Momo Watanabe. They're diehards. They are absolute diehards. Like, when are they going to pull the trigger? Sometimes you just have to wait when the time's right. And I think Momo's biggest bad luck is she is worthy of that championship and she can be a great champion. It's just that the timing's never right. It's just that we had Mayu and we had Utami and we had Tam and we had Julia and we had Maika and we have Saya Kamatani now, all doing great work, not only in the ring, but from a box office draw. But they know when Momo's time is right, very much like the wrestlers I just mentioned. Their time was right, that she's going to hit an absolute home run. And I can't wait because I know that red belt run is coming in the next year or so.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the points that it looked like Stardom were going to heat Momo Watanabe back up was when she did eventually turn on Queen's Quest and she blasted Azumi with a steel chair, turned her back on Queen's Quest and her best friends, and instead turned to Stardom's resident heel team, Oedatai, or Hate, as they're now known, and basically has been living under the persona of the Black Peach ever since. And again, this is where she's been getting more red belt opportunities. You mentioned that match with Syuri from the middle of 2022. Fantastic match. And that match that headlined last year's All-Star Grand Queendom in the Yokohama Buntai with Maika, that 2 out of 3 falls match. And that's something as well that you mentioned about Momo Watanabe fans. She has always been popular. She's always been popular. I mean, she came out in the USA to challenge Maika in the ECW arena, and she was the most over person in the entire building. And, you know, I mentioned it to you before, she's the heeliest heel to ever heel. And she's still getting this ridiculous reception. So people want to see her wrestle because they know how good she is. And I feel like if she was given that real opportunity to have that run at the top, it would be fantastic. We saw what she did with the Wonder of Stardom Championship, having those different matches with the different style of competitors, whether it's, you know, your shorter, more power-based matches against the Natsuko Tora, or, you know, those slugging out affairs with the matches with Jungle Kiona, or being on the back foot like against Jamie Hayter. She can have those different matches. Of course, as a heel, we've seen her more as that powerhouse, relying on those absolutely blistering kicks, which we're going to talk about in a moment when we talk about what you can expect from a Momo Watanabe match. But recently, it does look like Stardom are slowly but surely looking to turn Momo face. And I think that's a really good idea, Matt, because you hit the nail on the head. It's never been quite Momo's time. You know, the moment they turned Saya Kamatani heel last year to join Hate, you knew that she was the next in line for the World of Stardom Championship. You look at the year before, you know, they turned Momo Watanabe heel, but they also had Starlight Kid as well. And Starlight Kid was hugely over. So she was put sort of ahead of Momo. You had Maika, who got really, really hot after her feud with Suzu Suzuki, and she won the red belt. You had the feud between Julia and Tam, and that was over the red belt. And ultimately, there was always something that got pushed in front of Momo Watanabe's red belt run. And again, you look at her title matches, no singles match, title match victory since 2019, April 2019. She's had 70 title matches in Stardom, and she's won 34 of them. Wow. And the vast majority of those are multi-women. Now, obviously, we know she has faced Mercedes Mone before Capital Collision in August of 2024, where she lost in the main event for the New Japan Strong Women's title. That's the last time that these two women met. Matt, you watched the match, and even though, you know, you said it really heated up at the end, something that you noted was that Momo could bring a lot more.
At least in the beginning. Again, I've seen every Momo Watanabe match, at least big match, since 2018. Pretty much every Momo match, but definitely every Momo Watanabe match since 2021. And she's one of the hardest strikers in all of wrestling, which is saying something considering the fact of how many hard strikers they are, not just in wrestling, but in Stardom. Hazuki, Mayu, obviously Syuri. And I noticed, and sometimes when you have these hard-hitting wrestlers and they're wrestling an American style, they don't know hit said people because some people just don't want to be hit hard. I've been in matches before where people told me, Matt, don't throw this or don't throw that or don't throw it as hard. I'm like, well, it's going to look like crap. I'm just not going to throw it. We'll work around it, which is fine. Last thing you want to do is having your opponent feel uncomfortable. So this match starts, and it's a good match. You can see, like, in the first half of the match, Momo's throwing her strikes, and on a scale of 1 to 10, they're connecting like a 5. I'm like, that's really weird because Momo doesn't throw strikes like that. And you can see somewhere as you're getting towards the middle of the match, Mercedes like said something to Momo or hit Momo. And Mercedes was like, no, bring it. Because Mercedes, like, obviously she's from Boston. She's from America, but she works great with the Joshi. The hard-hitting match with Mayu. Obviously, the Hazuki match that we saw a couple months ago, that three-way that she had with Azumi and Hazuki, where she decided to get cute with Hazuki, and Hazuki introduced her to Hazuki mode. So Mercedes Mone, she will bring it, and she wants you to bring it because it's all and I know Mercedes Mone can kind of be a polarizing figure. I think she's phenomenal, but like she wants to do what's best for the match, and she always does. And I think what happened there is just like once the match started getting going, and Momo Watanabe was like, "Oh, I can hit her like I hit Mayu or Hazuki," and the match really started to build up towards the end. And the match was good. I think I rated like 4.25 stars. I was like, these two have a better match in them. They clearly have a better match in them. And I remember even when we reviewed the Hazuki match, I was a little worried it was kind of going to be the same thing where Hazuki was just like, I don't know if I can hit her as hard as I would hit a Momo or a Syuri. But clearly, as soon as the bell rang, Mercedes must have said something like, no, you can hit me as hard as you do everybody else in Stardom because it's going to be best for the match. And it's one of, if not the greatest women's match to ever take place on American soil. And the fact that Hazuki and Momo Watanabe from a work rate level are probably on the same level. They really, really are. I mean, that's a great debate. Who's the better overall wrestler with the two of them still young in their career? So I'm expecting the two of them to have a really great match. I don't think they're going to get 20 some odd minutes. As you mentioned before, partner, we got a loaded card with Ospreay and Fletcher in the cage. I think Kenny and Takeshita, obviously Adam Copeland, now known as Cope versus Moxley, a loaded show. Tony Storm taking on Mariah May, two former Stardom champions as well. So it's a loaded show. But at the same time, we've seen Mercedes Mone, who again is a massive star for AEW. She's going to get the time she needs to tell her story. We've seen her in those two back-to-back matches she had with Chris Statlander. I think they went like 13, 14, 15 minutes. That's where I'm guessing this is going to go. Around 13, 14 minutes, plenty of time for the two of them to tell their story. And I'm really expecting big things from this match because I think that, again, this is the first rematch that from Mercedes wrestling the Joshi that she's had. And she's had the best matches of her career post WWE run have been against the Joshi wrestlers. Kairi, Azumi, Hazuki, Mayu, Mina just at the Tokyo Dome. So this is the first one they're running back. And I'm really glad because as good as the match was, it was like, I know there's a better match in them. And I'm thinking we're going to see it this Sunday. And I'm really excited for a partner.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, obviously, hitting hard. And I think it's fair to say that Momo Watanabe is a hard hitter. I would argue that aside from Syuri, who is has legitimate MMA experience and a winning kickboxing record, Momo Watanabe has some of, if not the stiffest kicks in Japan. Some of those kicks, and again, considering some of the kickers in Japan, that I do not say that lightly. Some really stiff kicks. And I think that's something that Mercedes Mone will work really well with because she sells really well. And I think selling the brutality of some of Momo Watanabe's moves is going to be something that Mercedes is going to be able to accent really well. In terms of the move set, I'm just going to highlight a couple of Momo Watanabe's sort of most used maneuvers. So to start with, there's the Tequila Sunrise and there is the Peach Sunrise. Both moves are exactly the same apart from one difference. Now, both of them are bridging three-quarter Nelson suplexes. The only difference between the two is that the Peach Sunrise has a pump handle, so she grabs the wrist through the legs. That's the only difference. If there's no wrist clutch, it's a Tequila Sunrise. If there is a wrist clutch, then it is a Peach Sunrise. That's the only difference between the two. It does get confusing. She also utilizes, and this is going to be quite apt in a match with Mercedes, whereas Mercedes calls it a Meteora, Momo Watanabe has the same thing. She calls it a Samato. So the running knees. She also does a diving Samato from the second rope, which can often be quite disgusting.
And the top rope as well. And she does it from the top rope as well, yeah.
Yeah, comes down very heavily. Yeah, two more moves, which are just the final things that I want to just highlight. She has something called the B driver, which for fans of Hangman Adam Page is the Deadeye. And the Hitodonashi B driver, or the Bastard driver, for those familiar with Pac. It's also the same as Kota Ibushi's Phoenix driver, I think it's the same sort of thing. I know that Takeshita uses a Hitodonashi B driver as well. It's basically just Deadeye, but round the front. That's basically the two things. And apart from that, there's just one more move, and that is the Peach Thunder or the Peach Bomb. The name seems to change depending on who does commentary. But I always thought it was the Peach Bomb. But again, if it's called Peach Thunder, it's called Peach Thunder. And basically, it's the same setup as the Peach Sunrise. You get the pump handle half Nelson, but then it turns into a wheelbarrow driver. So think more made in Japan that Shingo Takagi does. That sort of twists that way.
Swerve Strickland started using it during his title run. It's basically, I think, Quiet. I remember Quiet. The first time I ever saw it was in the first year of Ring of Honor. Quiet Storm called it the Storm Cradle Driver. So it's
it's the same as that.
Something like that. Yeah, it's the same thing, and it's a move that she debuted at the 2021 5-Star Grand Prix on night one against Mayu Iwatani, which once again, folks, that is a must-see match. Not only in Momo's catalog, not only in Stardom's catalog, just in wrestling. just in wrestling. Yeah, great match.
In terms of matches, then, that you need to see, I mean, we've run through a very brief bullet point version of her history. There's lots of different things that you can go and look at, you know, her feud with Starlight Kid that eventually led to her abandoning Queen's Quest and going to Oedo Tai. You've got her red belt matches that we've mentioned, the matches from her white belt catalog, going through into her heel turn, sort of her perceived lack of respect, I think, from a few people. And we've also gone through her move set and things like that, moves you need to be wary of. In terms of your top 5 Momo matches, Matt, if someone were to go to you and say, I really liked that Momo Watanabe and Mercedes Mone match. This Momo Watanabe, she doth throw the kicks quite goodeth. As they would say in Old English.
Oh, okay. That was awesome.
Thank you. She doth throw the kick of goodeth. What matches do I need to see, or what matches would you recommend I see that really distill Momo Watanabe? What would you recommend? Because obviously, you know, she has 781 matches in her catalog. They're not all going to be must see. But if you were to say these are the ones that are quintessential Momo Watanabe, what would you say?
I would say no order, 5 matches. Momo Mayu, historic crossover from last year.
Absolutely.
I would say Syuri versus Momo Watanabe, the 2021 5-Star Grand Prix final. I would say Momo versus Suzuki, 2018 Cork and Hall for the Wonder of Stardom Championship. I would say Mayu versus Momo again, 2021 5-Star Grand Prix night 1. I would go with that one. And then I would go with, just to be a little bit different, because we mentioned how great of a tag wrestler she is, I would say Momo Watanabe and Starlight Kid against FWC, Hazuki, and Kagama from night 1 of World Climax. So they had a really good one about 2 months later in Fukuoka for the Goddess Festival. But those would be the 5 matches I would go with. But there's so many great matches. I mean, the Maika match. There's so many great matches with Maika. You know, in the match I'm doing later this week for Matches with Matt for our Patreon listeners, from the little tournament that they did back at the end of 2023. The 2 out of 3 falls match from Maika. We mentioned before All-Star Grand Queen of the Utami Red Belt match, but I know you mentioned 5 and I just gave 10, but those would be the 5 I would go with. And again, Momo Watanabe, even though she's never won the 5-Star Grand Prix, you can put her in the same catalog as Syuri and Mayu Iwatani as one of, if not arguably the greatest 5-Star Grand Prix wrestler of all time as far as it comes to match quality, because she's had some phenomenal matches in that tournament.
Yeah, I think if I were to just add a couple of matches to the ones that Matt has highlighted, I would certainly choose the match from the 3rd of March, which is ironically 6 years to the day. 6 years to the day. 3rd of the 3rd, 2019, between her and Jungle Kiona in Nagoya. Tremendous match, and there's a whole backstory between Jungle Kiona and Momo Watanabe that, again, we could go into here. But if you like what you see, Mercedes Mone versus Momo, absolutely check out all of the matches that Jungle Kyona and Momo Watanabe have. Definitely check those out. And I would also go and watch Momo Watanabe versus Mayu Iwatani for the for the Wonder of Stardom Championship. That is from Stardom True Fight from the 23rd of October 2018 in Corrigan Hall. That's also a really good match. And that was what I was talking about before when Io Shirai left, and those two were left as Icon versus Ace, and that's that match. And Momo Watanabe comes out on top, and it feels a lot like the crowd, like, okay, Momo is the top person. This is who we're pushing. Doesn't quite go that way, but that's how it feels during that match. So if I can add two to the 835 matches that Matt highlighted, then those are the two that I would choose. Matt, before we sign off, because the 40 minutes has really flown by that we've been talking about Momo, and I feel like we could talk a whole lot more about Momo Watanabe. What, if anything, would you like to add onto the end of this?
You know, you made mention about Momo Watanabe and those kicks. And I think, again, with LA being such a hot market and the fact the fans really like to boo Mercedes in a good way, we're going to see something we haven't seen in a long time. Momo Watanabe building her, and I think this is going to happen. Momo Watanabe building her comeback around those kicks. And I'm really excited because the people in LA that have never seen or heard of Momo before, they're going to hear those. You know, Mercedes is going to sell them and she's going to feed for them and she's going to put them over. But she's making her comeback on probably those kicks and those running somatos. The people are going to be like, "Did you just hear that? Like, you just sound like a gunshot went off." And that's what some of those kicks do sound like. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Momo when she's making her comeback in that match. I'm sure it's going to be the kicks, the tequila sunrise, stuff like that. Just the explosiveness that is Momo Watanabe, but at the same time, psychology, timing, ring positioning. Again, Momo Watanabe is, I know she's on my Mount Rushmore for Stardom, and I think Rob is the same. I think we have an Io, Kairi, Mayu, and Momo Watanabe.
Yep.
But even like when I go to my comic shop every Wednesday, cheap plug for the Encounter Comics and Game, Union Boulevard, Allentown, Pennsylvania. They're big NXT fans. They're big, basically fans of American wrestling. And when this match was announced, I walked in, the door didn't even shut, and like, "Tell us about Momo Watanabe." I was like, "Is she like a mid-carder that just Mercedes going to go over?" I said, no. She is on my Stardom Mount Rushmore. That's how good she is. So, yeah, I mean, I think that for people who have never seen Momo before, I've only seen a little bit of her, you guys are going to be absolutely blown away. Again, we've given you a series of matches to go and watch. Again, Up Stardom World is less than $6 a month. It's well worth your money. Not a sponsor of the podcast, even though they should be for all the free advertising we've been giving them over the last 5 years. But some of these matches are available on YouTube. Some of these matches, especially the matches with EO, they're available on YouTube. Definitely go and check them out because you're going to be blown away by one of the best wrestlers in all of wrestling, regardless of gender and or country.
And that brings us to an end of this primer. If you enjoyed this, we'd love to do more primer episodes. Let us know who you'd love us to do a primer episode on. If you'd like us to go into more detail about the history of certain wrestlers and things like that. If you are going to AEW Revolution, then one, I'm jealous. B, I do have absolute faith that this will be a match that you come away talking about. As we know, Mercedes Mone does her best work against the Joshis. We've mentioned that before, and I've got no doubt that Momo Watanabe is going to shine in the spotlight of this match. Again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are literally everywhere. If you want to listen to all these episodes early and ad-free, you can do on Patreon, patreon.com/the Stardomcast, as little as $1 solitary a month. You can check out the website, talkjoshi.com, for all of the history, championship histories, the stats, the news, the reviews, the show previews, and all that good stuff coming out of the world of Stardom and indeed of Dreamstar Marigold as well. You can find us on social media at the Stardomcast. You can also find us on Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Talk Joshi as well. Talk to me on Twitter at RealRobGoodwin. Mr. Matt Turner, sounds off good, sir.
Folks, questions, comments, suggestions, anything you need from me, Matt Turner OF, on the Instagram, on the Twitter, on the Blue Sky, and the TikTok as well. If you want to shoot me an email, that's perfectly fine. The email address simply is thestardomcast22@gmail.com. And folks, that's going to wrap it up for a bonus episode of the Stardom Cast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as me and Rob Goodwin enjoyed talking about one Momo Watanabe. And again, folks, if you go back into the catalog of the Stardom Cast, you want to listen to more Momo Watanabe, our review of Momo Watanabe's Wonder Stardom Championship run is in there, free. Go and give it a listen and tell us what you think, folks, because like I said, we greatly appreciate your support. Can't do without you. Like I always say, just not my podcast. It's our podcast. So all together, everybody's different. Everybody's special.